Hello and welcome back to HR Stew. My name is Regina Dyerly.
And I'm Holly Nels.
And this is HR Stew.
Today we're venturing into the world of workplace horror stories, the kind that will make your skin crawl and your hair stand on end. Not because ghosts are goblins, but sometimes the workplace can be truly horrifying. From nightmarish bosses to creepy coworkers and situations that will make you want to scream, we have it all. So grab your flashlight, hide under a blanket, and join us as we explore the dark side of office life. So let's start with a question. What is a workplace horror story that still haunts you?
So I'm sure we could both list quite a few.
Just a few horror stories.
Yes. One that really sticks out to me is there was an employee who had called in sick because they were abused. Let's say it happened on a Friday. So they were abused on a Friday and they had called in sick saying they couldn't come to work because they had bruises all over their face and they were embarrassed and, needed to take time off. And then come the next day that they were scheduled to work, they were a no-call, no-show. So it was just one of those concerning moments of, okay, they're a no-call, no-show. They've called in sick for a domestic violence incident that happened on Friday. Who's to say that this boyfriend or whomever isn't holding her hostage in the house or has done something horrible to her? And so we reached out to a couple of people and we're like, we need to notify the non-emergency line and, see if the police can go over and do a wellness check. And a lot of times if the police go over and do a wellness check, they're just going to knock on the door. And if you don't answer because something is wrong with you or you're held captive, you can't answer the door. So it came down to the leadership team. They didn't want to do a wellness check. They didn't want to reach out to the emergency contact, which it could have been, the significant other. So that wouldn't have been a great idea anyways, but they didn't want to do anything. They just wanted to wait it out and see if they showed up on the next day. And still to this day, it haunts me of what if something happened to this person? And I'll Google them from time to time just to see.
So they never heard from this employee again?
No, nothing. No, They didn't hear from the employee. Nobody would do a wellness check. Nobody would call. But I just keep thinking back if it was my daughter or, somebody that is really important to me, I would want somebody to be concerned. I understand getting involved from a workplace. You kind of want to disassociate yourself as an organization or as an employer, but be compassionate.
Yeah, it would have been tricky if you would have looked at the emergency contact and it was clearly the spouse.
Right.
Usually somebody's friends with somebody, they just have friends at work or something. That's a tricky one. I can't believe you don't even know anything about how it was resolved. I think you would know if something bad happened.
Yeah.
So
I would like to think so, but I don't know. It still haunts me.
That's what happens. A lot of times things are left unanswered. We just don't know.
Yeah.
I was weighing which story to tell. I have like a bomb scare one, and then I have one that is not similar, but also about somebody that was calling in sick a lot, right? But totally a different story. So I've mentioned this company before. I worked at a call center. We had a very liberal attendance policy because we didn't want to fire people, essentially. And we had this woman who was on a final written warning. I think she was at like 13 occurrences, right? She was not there very long. And she wasn't coming in. She actually did not call in the final day. She was on a final written warning. We didn't hear from her. So I did the obligatory call, which I thought was just going to be a routine. I didn't even think she would answer, honestly. And just called to let her know that she was being terminated. And when I tell you that she completely flipped out, that is a gross understatement of what happened. Name calling, personal name calling, just off the chain, terrible company, taking her livelihood, you name it. It was like she didn't come to work. She was like in her first 90 days and already was out 13 times and with no reason.
Right.
And then didn't call. And she was on a final written warning. It was I just didn't think that it would be an issue. So anyway, after I hung up with her and I had to hang up, I was like, I'm disconnecting this call now. She was really being abusive to me personally. So I hung up and then she just started repeatedly calling my phone.
Oh, wow.
One after another. And then so somebody was walking by my office and I snapped. I was to get their attention, to have them come in because I wanted a witness. And I picked up the phone and she completely went off on me and said she knew where I lived and she was coming to my house to bash my children's heads in with a bat.
Oh.
And like the other person who worked there was like, what an animal. Like, you know, like I hung up the phone and I actually was like choked up. I mean, this is someone that didn't come to work at all.
And was on a final written warning.
Right.
Had been
Without
giving
any,
warnings.
no reason, no explanation, no anything. So anyway, I called the cops, and they came. They said they couldn't do anything, basically, unless she actually did, in fact, bash my kids' heads in with a bat, which was upsetting. But they did go to her apartment complex. It gets really weird. The whole thing gets really weird because the complex was in the middle of some kind of standoff with her too. It was like a whole weird thing. But yeah, so that was a horror story for me. But funny enough, another one of my coworkers who was in HR at the time saw her like a year later at a gas station. She was like pumping gas, literally 9 months pregnant. And this woman drives by, and a year later, she had nothing to do with it. She just was in HR. I was like giving her the finger.
Oh my gosh.
She came to work. She's like, so I just saw so-and-so. I was like, wow. I'm like, a year later, she's still mad about getting fired from a job that she didn't seem to want. So yeah, that's my horror story.
In this next segment, we're going to be diving into workplace horror stories, but with a twist. We're going to be sharing some spooky real-life situations from the office while playing a game of Would You Rather. So let's start with this one. Having to work late once a week, being the last person in the office after dark, and in this workplace, you are always parked far from the office, or having to go on a work trip with a coworker you don't feel right about. This includes renting a car with them, and they are a horrible driver. And so before we choose, I just want you to both discuss each scenario. And have you ever experienced something like either of these? And how did you handle that?
Well, I don't like being in the office by myself. And Harrison knows this because I'm like, don't leave me here. I don't like walking in parking lots. But I equally wouldn't want to travel with somebody that made me, was it uncomfortable?
You just don't feel right about them. So
that you're uncomfortable.
uncomfortable.
Yeah. And you're alone with them in a car.
I feel like in that scenario, the one where you're alone with them in a car, you can say, oh, I'll drive. I want to drive the rental car. I'll get the rental car and pay for it and get reimbursed, those kind of things. And then you can like take away that they are a horrible driver and not have them drive. But I don't know that you could do that with anybody. I'm thinking about one person in particular who I've heard when they drive, they don't look at the road. They look at you the whole time.
I know what you're talking about.
So, and I don't know that I could say to this particular person, I want to drive and do the rental car.
Yeah, no.
I think I would rather stay late and walk outside to my car in the dark.
I think so too, even though I really, really don't like that.
That's the once a week option though.
Oh, once a week. Forever?
I could do it once a week.
Forever?
Well, as long as you have the job. Most people stay at their jobs 1 to 2 years. So 1 to 2 years.
You've been here 6 years, and so have I.
Fair.
And when neither of us are planning on leaving. I'm sorry, was this just a weekend that we would go, a week that we were going away?
I think so, yeah. I'm going to say that is the answer, but they do have to drive just for the spirit of the question.
So my life's in danger either way. Well, shoot. I still think, I think I'm going to take the work trip.
I think I'm going to take the walk outside and stay late every night. And I'll just get mace.
Once a week, forever.
Yeah.
That's 52 times a year.
Yeah.
Well, okay, you take a couple weeks vacation.
Yeah.
No, I'm going on the one-time trip.
So the second, would you rather? Having to report to your boss your daily activities with timestamps. For example, 7 a.m., logged in, 7:15, replied to email subject, etc. Or number 2 is having to share an office with your boss who is constantly telling inappropriate jokes that make you, and everyone else, uncomfortable anytime you try to concentrate. Additionally, he tries to talk to you while you're on meetings. Which would you rather deal with?
So didn't we do a whole episode on micromanaging? I feel like this particular boss who wants you to log to that level of detail
I had to
go
do
listen.
That. I don't know if you know, if I ever told you that I had to do that.
No, you didn't tell me.
When I worked at the manufacturing company here in the Springs, the person who was the manager of the department, and if he ever listens, I'd be embarrassed, but he was the manager of the department by default. Mm-hmm. Like he was an intern who was brought out to Colorado where everybody else was in Indianapolis and ended up being the manager of the department. And he did a Six Sigma project that was like a time study. And we literally had to log everything in 5-minute increments. into this database.
How long did you have to do that for?
I did it the whole time I worked there, and I worked there for 2 years. But
I thought it was just a time study. Like,
no,
do it for a month.
It got he rolled it out that he saved all this money, and it was this whole big Six Sigma. That's how he got his green belt, I think. But it was his Six Sigma project. Maybe it was a black belt. I don't remember. But I mean, like, we were logging when we went to the bathroom, everything. I mean, we definitely learned how to work it, where it was bigger blocks, obviously. But yeah, I actually did have to do that.
That's
It was a long time ago, but still.
Yeah. I could see for a time study for a month, 2 months, but
it was part of the now they moved the whole department, let him go, and then rehired everybody in Indiana because they let this guy just do whatever the hell they wanted instead of just replacing him. They spent $1 million relocating the whole department. So that's a whole other story for another day.
So they really wanted to get rid of him that bad that they just said,
I think so. They didn't even, yes.
That's crazy.
Yes.
If you're doing that for 2 years, you better get your black belt. Just saying.
If you're doing it for 2 years and you lost your job and the whole department,
We all lost our jobs.
you didn't do something very well. Like something wasn't working. Having to share an office with your boss who is constantly telling inappropriate jokes that make you and everyone else uncomfortable.
That's anytime you're focusing too. So
I've done the other thing and I know the workaround, so I would choose the first one because I've actually done it.
Yeah, I don't know if I could sit there with somebody who's making me feel uncomfortable and constantly talking while in meetings. So we have a lot of meetings and that would drive me nuts. So I think I agree. I would do the first one.
Even though it sucks.
Even though it sucks.
all right, number 3, would you rather having to whistleblow your CEO for committing white-collar crimes? If your CEO is caught, you will be implicated for the crimes. That requires you to report it ASAP. The second option is having to go on TV to speak on behalf of your company, which recently got in trouble for financial crimes. So you have to do one or the other.
So just for clarification purposes, we're going to report the CEO because if we don't report the CEO, then we're going to be implicated in his crimes.
If you don't report it, you're going to be implicated.
But
if you do report it, you will not be because you're whistleblowing.
Oh, I'm
totally whistling. I'm
reporting.
singing like a bird.
What is it you say, Regina? I'm taking care of myself first.
If it's between you and me, I'm always going to pick me.
That's what you say.
I wanted to mention that detail because the other option is you don't have to whistleblow anything, but you will, in this other world, speak on TV on behalf of your company.
I don't know. And I know it could be just one person who is implicated and the one who commits the financial crimes. But I don't know that I want to work for a company that, swept everything under the rug and didn't go and be a whistleblower, didn't go and report it. I don't know that I would want to stay
Either way,
there.
you're tainted.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a tough position to be in, but I definitely wouldn't want to be the representative because that person's a patsy.
Yeah. Well, in college, all of the business classes have an ethical component to it. I think there was even one class I had to take before I graduated that was just business ethics. And it talked about Enron and all of the other. And there's so many people who had an inkling or who knew about this and couldn't say anything because who the heck's going to believe them?
Yeah, it's very complicated. I remember at my last company, which I know I always talk about, but the CEO and I had a very good relationship for a long time, and we were going through a pretty tough time. And he came into my office one day and he's like, "You're my canary in the coal mine, or whatever." And I was like, "I don't want to be that. The canary dies." But he thought it was like a compliment. I was like, "Yeah, that's not what I don't want that."
So yes, I think definitely option 1 I would choose and be a whistleblower for.
Yeah, me too.
Does that have anything to do with a fear of public speaking, or is that just being the face of said?
Yeah, I think for me it's being the face of this misfortune, this criminal.
It's both for me, for sure. I mean, I think some people are super polished for TV, don't have a New York accent or whatever. But I've never aspired for that type of attention either. I mean, being in front of a mic right now is easy. I'm looking at you, I'm looking at Harrison. It's totally different. I think I've given up on that whole thing. I thought I had to push myself and I did it. I don't. I'm good.
Well, and plus, neither one of us in our career paths are going to be the public speaker for an organization or, it's going to be somebody else. We're in HR.
Yeah. Unless it's an HR issue, but.
No, and then we're just going to get
someone in PR
marketing
has to deal with that.
Yeah.
So the last would you rather Having to be one party of a mediation with your boss's daughter who has been harassing you. The mediation will, unfortunately, be facilitated by the boss, the coworker's dad. Or you must investigate misconduct accused of your manager's husband, who also works at your company. Through the investigation, it is discovered that he, your manager's husband, is having an affair with his secretary. This leads to you having to report that your manager's husband is cheating on her with a coworker, because you're reporting the investigation to your manager. Which would you rather do? And discuss each scenario. And have you ever had to deal with any stressful nepotism in the workplace?
C. I want C. I don't want either of those.
Oh, I'm singing like a canary. I'm telling the manager that her husband's having an affair.
That usually doesn't end up well.
No, you are correct.
Yeah.
I'm going to immediately start looking for another job as soon as I submit my investigation summary.
Definitely. Yeah, I think of those two, I would pick 2 as well, but with some really big hesitation.
Yeah.
Because people frequently are not grateful for that information.
Agreed.
And blame. And sometimes we'll question whether it was correct or whatever. So.
And blame the messenger.
Correct. Kill the messenger.
Yeah. Fire the messenger.
Yeah.
But having to sit in a mediation with the boss's daughter and yourself because the boss's daughter is harassing you sounds awful.
Yeah.
And who knows? Some parents, it wouldn't be that bad because the parent could actually see both sides. But they're always leaning towards the kid.
Yeah.
Coach's kid.
I don't want to deal with anything with someone's kid.
Yeah.
Period. Because that's the most unreasonable a person's going to be.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, there's nothing that I love more than my child. Don't mess with my child.
Right.
But I think I am balanced, and I'm saying that.
Right.
Right? So.
I agree.
Mostly balanced. Sometimes unbalanced, but mostly balanced.
I'm trying to think if I was sitting in a mediation with you and your daughter and I weren't getting along. Her daughter's a teenager. This is never going to happen. But I'm trying to think about how
Listen, I know when my kid's being a jerk.
Yeah.
So
to some extent,
yeah.
I could see when your kid's being a jerk, but then to the other extent, it's like you don't want to embarrass your kid in front of somebody else.
Yeah, it's a terrible position to be in.
Yeah,
on top of it.
That stinks for the parent.
So we do have that one client. They're no longer a client. The CEO hired her daughter and then promoted her daughter, who had no experience, not even the education.
Didn't we get some complaints? Or
yes. Well, she was promoted above somebody else that had worked there for a long time.
Yeah.
And then there was a complaint at the site. They actually fired somebody because she wasn't getting along with the daughter.
Oh, I
and it was
remember
the daughter was supposed to report to her. It's all a little fuzzy, but I just remember and she worked there the whole time.
It was blatant.
The CEO
nepotism.
did not want to hear it.
Yeah.
There was investigations, there was complaints, it was an ongoing issue.
Right.
From the outside, you're like, wow, why is she doing that?
Yeah.
Why is she doing that? And then this is many companies ago, we were bought by a much larger company, a very large company. And the CEO actually had his son as the project manager of the whole transition. Actually, he was a really nice guy, but didn't know what he was doing. Before, he was selling life insurance. So the CEO was he was going to retire. He had a retirement date, and he was clearly trying to set his son up for a position. And I remember looking years later, and it didn't work out. He was back selling insurance.
Oh,
after he retired, it didn't. I don't know what happened, but I wasn't there anymore. But that was pretty blatant too. I mean, it was a huge project for somebody that was selling life insurance previously.
Yeah. With no project.
It was focused
experience.
on very small things we need to get a new entrance for the building, and it was there is a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah,
you're focused on getting so that the rain didn't come in on the rug. It's okay.
Did you sit in on these meetings with a straight face?
Yes, I did.
You never know until you walk a mile in somebody else's shoes. However, don't hire your kids.
Right. People want to set their kids up to be successful. Use your network to do that.
Yeah.
Don't use your own business. It's just makes everybody feel icky.
Agreed.
All right, so now we're going to move on to the segment Ask HR, where people go online and ask experts questions and get answers. So this comes from user Fast, spelled with a PHZ. It says, I work from home. My manager claims that aside from lunch, if I leave my desk for 10 minutes, I will get written up. This is the second warning in 2 weeks I've gotten. Everyone on the team takes 5 to 30-minute breaks throughout the day. Sometimes in the morning after drinking coffee, I have to go to the bathroom. Right at the 10-minute mark, he calls me today. He doesn't do this with anyone else, and he says he's not micromanaging. His words, not mine. He said, quote, other than lunch, from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., you cannot leave your desk. I am watching your screen. I kept it very professional, didn't apologize, then immediately reported him to HR for harassment. I am a top performer on my team. Just got my yearly evaluation. Most phone time, always early, always leaving late. I take no vacation time because I have no kids. Was I right to report him?
Yes.
Take your vacation. Yes, definitely. I would have reported him. Is this from North Carolina?
This is from North Carolina. And
okay.
I do want to ask, so that what they asked was I right to report him? But I would like to expand on that a little bit more too.
So I just had to look up quick to see if North Carolina was a two-party state because I didn't know off the top of my head, and it is. I still would record it for work purposes.
Can you explain what a two-party state is?
Meaning, do you need permission to record? Colorado is a one-party state, so I could record a call because I am consenting to it being recorded, whether or not you do or not. North Carolina is a two-party state, meaning both parties have to consent to record a call. So that's unfortunate because I would absolutely record that call. And I probably still would for work. It's not for legal purposes. Like it's not being used in a court of law. But that's harassment. I'm sure some of this is over Teams or whatever version of IM they have. This is absolutely harassment. If this is a top performer and he's singling this person out, that is super problematic.
So, and I know we live in Colorado and breaks are required, but even living and working in Florida, breaks were always given to you. So a lunch break, if he was working 8 to 5, and then an additional 10 to 15 minute break. And no one has ever said, I couldn't go to the bathroom. And if you go to the bathroom a lot, maybe ask for a reasonable accommodation.
In one of our early, I think it was like the second podcast we ever did, I talked about how my aunt actually, who had been in her job for like 40 years. She started working from home during the pandemic, and she was like racing back to her desk because they were looking to see if she was online. She couldn't do anything. She sat at her desk all day.
That's crazy.
And she left that company, obviously, and she's in a great position now, but she worked there for years.
Yeah.
It just boggles my mind. I'm assuming that this position is an exempt position and not an hourly position just based on how it's written, because breaks are not mandatory. So that's what I
assumed as well.
Well, and I also want to add that PTO is not paid out in North Carolina. Take your vacation time because you're going to lose it. Start looking for another job, something that's going to bring you great joy like your aunt did, and just start looking for somewhere else and something else to do and take your vacation.
I'm curious to see. I would, as always, I wish I could know what happens next because I'm really curious to see what HR does with this because it is a form of harassment. Not traditionally, we don't know what the demographic is. We don't know any other information, right? So it's definitely extremely unprofessional that he's singling her out. I wonder if it's a new boss to them. I mean, if they're a top performer, you would think they were there for a while, right? It's unfortunate. I hope that HR really looks into it and figures out what's behind this and could stop this behavior.
Agreed.
Do you think there's a way that this writer can win in this situation without leaving their company?
I mean, it's possible. Sometimes, I know I've used this analogy before, but in my earlier career, this was told to me by someone else, so I did steal this. This is not my original thing, but it was like Survivor. You just have to outlast. Like, things change. Like, just when you give up hope sometimes, something happens. And a lot of times, people like this will move on, will leave. If she likes her job, she's able to work from home. I don't know why she's working early and leaving late and not taking vacation. That's also problematic for her, not for the company, obviously. It's working out for them.
Yeah.
But, again, if she likes her job, I wouldn't recommend leaving. Someone like this, it depends. I don't know. It's so hard not knowing the scenario, right?
Unless he's the owner's son. He's not leaving.
She would have said that. Or
Agreed.
he or she would have said that. Was saying she. I think if it's a large enough company, try to transfer to another manager. But I think he needs to be written up for sure. If he truly is singling out this one person in his department who's a top performer, because even though I think you have to always look out for your own mental health and your well-being, which she's not doing, by the way, I think, I wouldn't let someone chase you out from a good job because you're going to go somewhere else. There's going to be something else a lot of times.
I want to thank everyone for listening. This is all the time we have for today. If you've enjoyed your time with us, please subscribe and leave a review. If you have any HR stories or questions to share, message us on Instagram at hr.stew. I'm Holly.
And I'm Regina.
And we'll see you next time on HR Stew.